We are in the midst of this third intense storm, and I know that in some parts of the Lower Mainland and here in Victoria, there is a bit of a lull. But I want to make it clear to everyone this storm is not over. There's this little break right now, but a significant part of the storm is still to come throughout the rest of the day. The extreme weather events we've been experiencing are unprecedented, and many parts of our province have been seeing more heavy rainfall. The Squamish-Lillooet Regional District issued an evacuation order late yesterday in the Birkin area, and those residents are receiving supports. But the full extent of the damage from this latest storm remains to be seen. Even as we continue recovering from the impacts of previous systems and widespread flooding, we are monitoring weather and road conditions across the province very closely and working with communities and emergency services to respond. Local leaders have been incredible partners in supporting British Columbians, and I am confident we will overcome these challenges stronger than ever. Our top priority remains public safety. The River Forecast Centre issued several flood warnings and watches this morning for southwest BC and the Central Coast. You'll hear more about these advisories in a moment. And I know I've said this often, but we all need to avoid unnecessary travel right now and wait out this storm. And everyone needs to follow all evacuation orders and the instructions of local officials, the experts on the ground. And call 911 to report your location immediately if on evacuation order and you cannot evacuate on your own. Please stay informed through updates from Environment Canada, Drive BC, your local government, or your local First Nation. I want to thank British Columbians for their vigilance, for being prepared, and for keeping themselves and their neighbours safe. When we all work together and do our part, it makes a huge difference. This remains an extremely challenging time for our province. This series of storms has come on the heels of another terrible wildfire season, and while we're still living through a global pandemic. These events can create uncertainty and anxiety for many. Extreme weather like this can have powerful impacts on our physical and our mental health. It's critical that we look out for each other and help people access the mental health supports that they need. If you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or have been directly impacted by the ongoing extreme rains and flooding, please know you're not alone and we're in this together to help. We continue to work with all health authorities through emergency support services to keep people connected to vital treatments and services. Our central website at gov.bc.ca/flood response has a full list of virtual mental health supports available to anyone affected by the flooding. This includes free and low-cost counselling, workplace mental health supports, and supports for young people, students, seniors, and Indigenous peoples. If you've been evacuated, you can ask an emergency support services volunteer about the mental health and counselling supports that are available to you. Mental health support information and resources are also available by calling the BC Crisis Line, and it's free and open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've seen an incredible outpouring of support and camaraderie during this disaster. Adversity can bring out the best in people. Thanks to the generosity of Canadians and funds from the province to date, the Red Cross has sent out more than $5.8 million to eligible households affected by the BC floods and extreme weather. And as announced by Premier Horgan and the Prime Minister, the Government of Canada and the Province of BC will match all donations made by individuals and corporations between November 17th and December 26th. This means that every $1 donated will become $3 to support those who've been affected by the floods. The response has been incredible. And thankfully, there appears to be some reprieve in the weather in the days ahead. But for now, please continue to look out for one another in your communities. The latest storm will pass and we will recover. I want to acknowledge especially all the first responders and other emergency workers who have been working tirelessly to keep people safe. And the countless volunteers from emergency support services to search and rescue groups to everyday British Columbians to our military forces who are on the ground in communities in many flood-affected parts of the province, helping where they can and when they can. With that, I will now turn the update over to my colleague, Minister Fleming.
Thank you very much, Minister Farnworth, and good morning. Like other agencies in government, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure has been closely following the current atmospheric river event. We have had crews and equipment on standby in all regions where heavy rainfall events were expected. Yesterday morning, a travel advisory was issued for Highway 20 in the Bella Coola Valley. Also yesterday afternoon at 4 p.m., we preemptively closed Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet. That decision was based on geotechnical advice from our engineers because of the heavy saturation on the ground in that area, extremely saturated with more heavy rains expected. I want to give a recap on the status of our major highways as of this moment today. Highway 1 through the Fraser Valley remains closed between Abbotsford and Chilliwack. The Tiger dams that were set up there on Sunday night are in place and have been effective in preventing the roadway from being flooded. We need to get through this atmospheric river event and provide an update on what reopening and when reopening might occur. On the east side of Chilliwack, Highway 1 remains closed between Popcombe to Hope. There is some flooding on that section. In the Fraser Canyon, Highway 1 remains open between Hope and Boothroyd, but it is closed between Boothroyd and Spence's Bridge. Highway 7, earlier this morning there was a debris slide on Highway 7 near Seabird Island, forcing the closure of the highway between Agassiz and Hope. That debris has now been cleared and the area is open. A further accident at Lake Erock had that area operating as single-lane alternating traffic, but that has now also cleared. Of course, we know with the Trans-Canada closed, we know how important Highway 7 is as the only road corridor where essential goods can move out of the Lower Mainland. And we will keep that travel order in effect because of its importance. Highway 3 remains open and safe, which is very good news for our supply chain. Of course, the Highway 7 to 3 connection is the main route for trucks to access the interior and the north. I remind all drivers to please drive to conditions on this route. And in fact, on all highways. These roadways are not in a normal state, and we want to avoid accidents and keep people safe. So please slow down. Be patient, accept that it will take longer to get to where you need to go, and drive according to current weather conditions. Highway 11 in the Abbotsford area is open south of the Trans-Canada to the U.S. border. However, on the north side of the highway it remains closed due to significant damage from the first storm event over 2 weeks ago. In terms of other routes, Highway 99 right now remains closed. Our engineers are assessing when it will be safe to reopen, and we hope that will be this afternoon. So again, pay attention to Drive BC. We expect an afternoon reopening of Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet. We will confirm that later this afternoon. Here on Vancouver Island, all routes remain open. Into the interior, Parks Canada has Highway 1 closed between Revelstoke and Golden. This is for avalanche control purposes. That closure is scheduled to last until 4:30 p.m. This afternoon. Also, Parks Canada has closed Highway 93 until tomorrow because there is heightened avalanche risk there. So we'll continue to advise the public through Drive BC, through specific travel advisories about these highways and others. But again, I would urge British Columbians to ask themselves if your travel is absolutely necessary, and if it's not, avoid being on the roads while this storm is still active, and while we need to keep key highway corridors open for the supply chain that British Columbians depend on. There are communities that are experiencing shortages. These trucks getting through are critically important. More than 5,000 trucks, for example, have been able to get through and make deliveries because Highway 3 has remained open. We're happy to see freight trains operating as well, which is great news for our supply chains and our connection to the rest of Canada. Rail lines are out there actively inspecting their tracks after these rain events. Train movement will hold when required for maintenance and then resume. Also, commercial vehicles, as I've mentioned in a couple of updates, are getting through to the interior by driving through Washington State, and I think at the last update I had was since those border exemptions were brought in and negotiated between Canadian Border Security and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, about 1,200 trucks have taken that route through northern Washington, which is great news for goods movement in BC and really supplements what we're able to do with Highway 7 and Highway 3. And with that, that is the update from our ministry.
We will now turn it over to ARMEL CASTELLAN. Please go ahead, ARMEL.
Hi, thank you very much. ARMEL CASTELLAN, warning preparedness meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. As Minister Mike Farnworth just mentioned, we are in a lull of the third atmospheric river in the span of a week. We expect more precipitation this afternoon to the tune of up to 40 millimeters for places like Howe Sound, for the North Shore Mountains, and towards Abbotsford. Beyond Abbotsford, we expect potentially up to 50 millimeters for Chilliwack and Hope through the evening. And up to Coquihalla, in the Boston Bar, locations into the coastal mountains, we could see another 30 millimeters, maybe even 40 millimeters still, knowing the implications of moisture making it that deeply into the southwest interior. We're also seeing some west winds ahead of the cold front, 30 gusting to 50 kilometers an hour. Right now at Vancouver International, we have south winds 40 gusting to 60, and they should shift to southwest through the afternoon. Those highest intensity precipitation should come this afternoon as the cold front sweeps through. The other thing to note, of course, is that we're dealing with record-breaking heat. So an atmospheric river not only brings moisture, but it brings heat, and it's bringing it well above 3,000 meters, well above mountaintop heights. Many records are being broken today for these temperatures and yesterday, perhaps even record-breaking temperatures for any day in December. So very, very warm up high, a lot of snow melt in addition to what we're seeing in terms of precipitation. So please understand that this event has already seen close to 200 millimeters on the outside coast of Vancouver Island, a lot as well, over 100 millimeters in the eastern Fraser Valley and near Squamish and Howe Sound. And there's still a really good pulse this afternoon into the evening hours before it's over, and we can not have very much precipitation for Thursday and Friday. We are tracking a storm for Saturday or late Friday. It mostly affects the south coast, but it is not as potent as these atmospheric rivers are. We should see somewhere around that 15 to 25 millimeters, perhaps a little bit more, but generally speaking, quite a bit less. And then looking forward into next week, we see a continued active Pacific right into the south coast and the central coast. So please be aware to follow your forecast and heed the warnings as closely as possible as we go into continued active weather. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ARMEL. We will now go to David Campbell. Please go ahead, David.
Thank you. On the river side, we are picking up that snowmelt across, particularly the south coast. Addition of 15 to 60 millimeters of snow water equivalent we've seen running off areas through the south coast. So that's in addition to the heavy rainfall that ARMEL talked about. Up in the north and central coast, those snowmelt rates have been a little bit more muted, which has helped to some degree the severity of flows that we're seeing up there. So scanning across the province right now, central coast, seeing moderate river level rises. Expect that to continue through the day today, and then expecting to see conditions improve tomorrow. On Vancouver Island, things have been relatively stable through the day today, but with additional rainfall coming, there is the potential to see higher flows as we go through the latter part of today. Through the south coast is really where we've seen quite significant rapid rising of rivers, particularly around the Howe Sound and Fraser Valley areas. So, and are anticipating fairly challenging river conditions through the eastern side of the Fraser Valley, the Chilliwack River, as well as rivers draining off both the north-south side of the Fraser Valley. We've also seen spillover of rainfall going into the interior watersheds, and expecting ongoing challenging river conditions into the Tulameen River down into Princeton, as well as the Coldwater River into Merritt, and tributaries into the lower Nicola and Spias Creek. As discussed, there still is some more rain to come through the afternoon today here, and do anticipate conditions can be exacerbated from that. So we may see newer emerging issues arise throughout the coast, particularly on the central coast or on the south coast side of things. On the Nooksack River, the river has been rising. We are seeing that it has been a little bit lower than forecast yesterday in terms of that rate of rise. So the risks for overflow spill seem to be reduced on the Nooksack River into the Sumas River. The National Weather Service in the U.S. has dropped their flood watch for that area. So we're continuing to watch the rises there and expect it will peak out later today and then recede. And at this point, looking like decrease from that, risks from that. While the conditions continue to be challenging through today, we are expecting with drying weather into tomorrow and the weekend that we will see more substantive improvement in river conditions tomorrow and into the weekend, giving reprieve from what has been a prolonged period of challenging conditions. At the moment, we have flood warnings in place for the lower mainland and Fraser Valley, including the Chilliwack River, the Sumas River, and the Coquihalla. We also have flood warnings in effect for the Coldwater, Lower Nicola region, as well as the Tulameen, Princeton. And flood watches are in effect for the remainder of the coastal regions, including Vancouver Island, Central Coast, Howe Sound, and the Sea to Sky. And high stream flow advisories in other areas of the interior where we're expecting to see both the combination of snowmelt and heavy rain. That concludes the update from the River Forecast Center. Thank you.